Hello and welcome to another tutorial on the Boodlebag platform. Today we're going to be covering creating shared spaces. So let's get started. Once you log into your account, you want to go into the shared spaces menu. Now this particular customer has both the shared spaces features enabled as well as the business management software enabled. That's why you see many more menu items, as well as on the dashboard here, the home dashboard, you have many more icons as well. So you'd go into shared spaces and you would click on business locations and spaces. On this page, if you already have locations already created, you would have a listing of all your locations here. And underneath each location, you'll have the spaces that are created within this location. But I'm going to go through and show you how to create a location and then also to create spaces under the location. So if you didn't have any locations already created, we'll show you how to do that. So to create a location, you'll click on Add Location. And it's fairly simple. All you have to do is enter in the address information for that location. Then start adding spaces by clicking on New Space. Now I'm not going to do this in here in a blank location. I'm going to do this in a location that's already been created just for simplicity, but the workflow is exactly the same. You'll see that we have a New Spaces button when we go into a location that's already been created, and I'm just going to show you that from that location. So I'm just going to close here. So now let's click on this. So see how there are the two icons here. The one on the left is to edit the location. The one on the right is to delete the location if you are no longer at that location or that location is no longer valid for your business. So I'm going to click to edit. And it's the same view. The only thing is now we have locations that have been previously created showing up. So if you're creating a new location, you would enter in the address information, right, with the phone number. Right here, we'll go into this a little bit more later, but for every location, you have sharing links that enables you to be able to share this location by social media, email, post it on your website, have links to it from your website, so you can have a direct call to action for people that are interested in your space. But we'll show you more about that later. Here are the spaces that have been previously created. If you wanted to create a brand new location, you would click on New Space, not location, but space. If you wanted to create a brand new space, you'll click on New Space. And because locations and spaces are priced such that they're dependent on what you have configured for that space, we always want to make sure that you're aware of our pricing and that you do agree to that. So if you're unaware of the pricing, please look at the Boodlebag main page and the page for shared spaces and get familiar with the pricing so that you know what we charge based on the number of active spaces you have, going whether you're a tenant or you're a space owner. So you say accept, and then you can go in and start creating the space. So now I'm going to go through and speak to all the different components of configuration for a space. Now there are four different types of spaces: private spaces, public spaces, mixed-use spaces, and single-tenant spaces. Private spaces are spaces that you have specifically reserved for your own use and your staff use. These are not spaces that you rent out, but you're using the Boodlebag platform to manage the sharing of that space just within your organization. Public spaces are spaces that you've created that you're renting out to other individuals or businesses. And specifically, your staff do not use these spaces. So these are reserved only for renting. And the Boodlebag platform is then used to manage your renters renting those spaces. Mixed-use spaces are a combination of private and public spaces. So these are spaces that you both have your staff using and you have space renters renting. Single tenant spaces are spaces that you have reserved specifically to rent to a single tenant, and they have exclusive access to that space and nobody else uses that space. So in this case, let's click on mixed use, and I will go through all the different items here. So because we have the business management software that is part of the Boodlebag platform, with the business management software, you're able to track expenses and revenue coming in to a particular product. So in this particular field, you would set up what product you want to track your revenue and expenses for this particular space that you're creating. If you don't have any products already in here, you can click on this plus sign and you'll be able to add a product. And all you need is to put a name for the product and a description. If you already had some here, you can just select the product that you want. Now actually, let me do this. Let me go to a previously created space. That way we can see what it looks like without me having to create all of those, all that data into the database. So let's look at a mixed-use space. So Studio 2 is a mixed-use space. And actually, let me go over what these icons here are too. So the first icon here is a priority order specification. What this does is it gives you the ability to specify based on each of these spaces that you've created that you have access to, and this is for your business, not for the tenants, which of these spaces is your first choice for bookings. Now, again, this is a thing that is only relevant to businesses that also have the business management software enabled. If you have the business management software enabled, then you also have a scheduler that is built into the business management software, which is separate from the shared spaces software. And with the scheduler in the business management software, you can then book appointments. And when you're booking appointments, either yourself or you have a customer booking appointments online directly themselves, the software would suggest locations for that appointment based on it determining what's available. It uses the setting of preference as an input into its decision as to what space to recommend for that appointment. Okay, and it's fairly easy to set up your preferences. You just order them. You can push them up or down, right? So if I pick a particular one, I can say I want to move this down, and you can see it's been moved down. I can say I want to move it up to make it my preference. Whichever order you put it in here, once you say save and close, that becomes your preference order over here too. The second icon here is to edit the space. And the last icon is if you want to deactivate or activate the space. So if you don't want that space listed any longer and available for bookings, you can deactivate it. And if you had previously deactivated it, you can activate it. So now let's go into Studio 2 and look at configuring spaces. Again, because you can, anytime you make changes to the space, you could incur charges. You want to make sure that you always acknowledge that and always be aware of what we charge based on active spaces you have and so on and so forth, and what type of space it is too. So we talked about the resource access type, right? In this case, it's mixed use. We talked about the product. In this case, we've selected the tracking product for our ledger to be Studio 2. You always have to give the space a name. We've called this space Studio 2. You want to put in the square footage. This is information that is made visible to people that are searching and trying to decide what space is suitable for their use. Booking capacity. So this is also unique and valuable. What this means is a particular space. Sometimes spaces have the ability, and depending on your use case, depending on how you use your spaces, you have the ability to have more than a single teacher using the space at the same time. A great example of this is with ballroom dance studios, where you have multiple private lessons taking place on a large ballroom dance floor at the same time. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to just be ballroom studios. This could be used for, a salon that has identical chairs could have, rather than having each chair be its own space, they could have the whole salon be one space, but then the booking capacity will be the number of chairs in that space. If all of them are identical and they charge the same for all the chairs. It's always simpler to just have a capacity rather than have each chair be its own space. Okay, and the software, if you have a booking capacity, the software manages ensuring that you don't have conflicts. It would only allow that many of bookings to be at the same time within that space. Now, if you choose a booking capacity that is more than one, then we allow you to be able to specify how much you would charge per hour to rent out the entire space. Now, this might not be relevant for like a salon, for example, where you wouldn't necessarily have one person rent out all the chairs in the salon, but for something like a dance studio, where now you want to have a group class in that space rather than a private lesson, and you don't want that group class to be at the same time that other things are going on in the same space. So you might want to have all of the space booked. You have the ability to specify how much you charge if someone wants to take all the booking units in the space. Your cancellation policy. There are a few of them that we allow. So you can have cancel anytime, meaning that they can cancel up until the time of the appointment. No cancellation, meaning once it's been booked, it can't be canceled. 1 hour cancellation, 24-hour cancellation, 1 week, and 1 month. And essentially what the software will do is not allow cancellation based on those settings. The space description. Your space description is really important. We always suggest that you specify, that you put in a description here that is with the idea of marketing behind it. You want it to be attractive, you want it to be descriptive, you want it to be something that would help your space sell. Because this is one of the things that individuals who are searching for spaces will see, and they'll use this to inform themselves about the space and help them make a decision of whether or not this is the right space for them. So definitely make this attractive and descriptive, as descriptive as you can. This is another set of data that is very, very important for giving a space visibility and matching for uses that individuals who are looking to rent a space might have. So with the suitable uses, you want to be as specific for the uses that your space is suited for. So if it's dance lessons, if it's yoga, if it's martial arts, you want to specify that in here specifically. Now, you can either enter individual words or phrases. If you enter a phrase, so like we have here, I'm just going to delete this here so I can re-enter it. So if I enter a phrase, dance, right, I can either do that, just enter a phrase dance, and notice how I hit enter. After you enter the word, you want to hit enter so it registers, or you can say dance lessons. Now, each of these become a unique search item that would be matched when a user is searching. So if a user is searching and they say they are looking for a space suitable for dance lessons, it would match because you have dance lessons. If they search for just the word dance, they would see that you have dance in here multiple times. So it would definitely match for dance, but it wouldn't necessarily match as precisely as dance lessons. Right, so now maybe your space is not really good for dance lessons, but it's good for dance shows. If they searched for dance, dance shows will also show up under dance lessons, but if they search for dance lessons, dance shows will not show under dance lessons. And you can enter in multiple phrases here, single words or phrases, until you get to the limit. And it will tell you when you get to the limit, so you can enter as many as are suitable for your space. But we definitely suggest that you are entering phrases and words that really tie to your space. This here, access privileges, is again another one of the items that is specific if you have the business management software. If you have multiple types of services that you provide. So for example, if you are a fitness business or beauty and fitness business, you might have staff members that give massages. You might have staff members that give facials. So you might have a space for facials and you might have a space for massages. You don't want to book a massage into the facial studio, and you definitely don't want to book a facial client into a massage studio. So depending on the service that the customer is trying to book, the business management software can identify what services are suitable within each space to then assign or recommend that space for that service. So here you would specify all the different services that that particular space is suitable for based on services that you've pre-configured within the business management software. Now when we go into in another tutorial, when we are covering the business management software, you'll learn more about this, but that's what this is here, access privileges. If you don't have the business management software, this will not show, and you wouldn't be able to make any specifications for that. Showing listings. So you can create a space and not have that space show when individuals are searching for spaces. If you don't want your space to show, all you have to do is uncheck that. If you want it to show, make sure it's checked. Now every space has to have exactly 2 images. So you would take some pictures of your space. We highly recommend that you take pictures that are with good lighting to be able to give your space the best presentation. And the spaces, the pictures of your spaces have to be under 200 kilobytes, right? So when you try to add it, if it's over, it's going to tell you. If it's not, it would accept it. We suggest that you make that as close to give you the best resolution. We also recommend that you have it in landscape mode so that the height is shorter than the length. A good length is 1255 pixels is what we use for most of our images. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Use 1255 pixels and have it in a 4:6 mode. So 4 in height and 6 in width. And if you ever want to change the image, all you do is you click on the X there, and you can take off the image and add another. And if it was blank completely and you wanted to add an image, you click on this, and you'll have the ability to select an image from your file system. Aggregate unit rates. This deals with pricing for your space. To set up pricing, you could either just have a flat rate, in which case there would only be one item in here, and that would be for whatever number of minutes you set, you'll be charging that number of dollars. And what the software would do is it would then, and later on, we'll see when we look at booking spaces and billing for spaces, you would see this where the software would go through and look for all the appointments that are booked within your billing period, and it would determine, based on your unit rates, how many of each apply. So for example, if you had just 45 minutes for $25 and you were billing every day, you chose for a particular customer to bill them every day, and you had only one rate, $45 for 45 minutes for $25. If the customer in that day had only one 45-minute appointment, the customer will be charged $25. If they had 90 minutes of appointments in that day, they'll be charged $50. Now, you can also have bulk rates, so you can say for 135, which is 3 sets of 45 minutes, you want to charge $70, which will give them a discount over what they otherwise would have. So ordinarily, it would have been $75 for 3 sets of 45, but you might want to encourage your customers to use your spaces more by offering them bulk discounts. So you can set another rate where if they used 135 minutes, then they would be charged $70. Now, how would the system then bill for that? The system would look within your billing period. So let's say you had your billing period be a day, and you could have a week or month too. If your billing period was a day, it would then say how many 135 blocks did this customer have, right? So it would look through how many 135 first and charge those for $70 until it can't get 135 anymore. Then it would say how many minutes are left after that. If that is more than 45, it would bill the first 45, and then whatever is left from 1 minute to 45 will then be billed at 25. I'll go over that again. So it would start from the highest number of minutes and see how many of those are in that period. It would charge $70 for each set of 135 minutes in the period you're billing. Then it will go to the next rate, see how many of that are left, because now you don't have up to 135 minutes left that it can bill for. It will then charge $25 for every set of 45 minutes it can bill in that time frame. Now, very important, say after it's billed, the 135s and the 45, there was only, say, 15 minutes left. Because you have 45 as the lowest charge rate, 15 minutes will still be billed at $25. So the lowest charge for any number of minutes on a particular booking would be on a particular set of bookings would be $25. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Now let's go on. Private use hours. So we can, when we're setting up spaces, we can restrict the use of time for our staff. Under private use hours, you can add particular time blocks where these are the times that your staff can use it. If you don't have anything here, then your staff can use it any time. Similarly, with public use hours, these are the restrictions for renters. You can specify that renters may only rent during particular hours. And all you have to do is just put in time ranges. So you can say Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, pick the day of the week, and then you put in what start time and end time that block has. Now, time blocks can't overlap, but once you put in those times, and I can just actually do one, we can just say Tuesdays, we want to have renters rent starting at 5 p.m. and going till 10 p.m. And we say add time block, and we're only allowing renters to rent on Tuesday between 5 and 10. So now when we come in here, we can now see that we have a public use restriction for only Tuesdays from 5 to 10 p.m. Now, the system will not allow any renting. So if you try to schedule, if a renter is trying to look for times to schedule, they would only see times on Tuesdays between 5 and 10 for this particular space. Now, if you don't want to restrict the hours that they can rent, then you want to make sure you don't have any hours in the restriction block. And it's the same thing for private use hours with your staff. If you want to demarcate when your staff can use it versus when renters can use it, then you're filling these times. If you don't, you leave them blank. And you can have restriction for your staff and not for renters, and you can have restriction for renters and not your staff. It's all completely up to you. Now, once you have a renter that is interested in your space, when they put in a request, that request will show up down here. And when that request shows up down here, you can then open it and review it and be able to then accept or reject. You'll have their information. You can call them up. You can set up a meeting, interview them. Once you feel comfortable with them, you can then approve their request. And once you approve their request, then they move up here as approved renters. Now, I'll open this up. This is the same view as to when you're down here reviewing a renter's application. It looks exactly like this here, but if you've already approved them, you can go in here and be able to make changes or review a previous approval. So I'm going to open this particular renter, and you can see what space it is that this is for. It's for Studio 2. Now, every time a renter is requesting to rent, they always send you a message along with that request, so you can see what that message is. And typically, they'll tell you what their interest is and who they are, what they would like to do with your space, and things like that, to give you some idea of whether or not this is somebody that you want to actually rent your space to. You also will see the business name here. If they're not a registered business, you'll see their first name and last name. And then you would also get their email and phone number. Now down here, when you are approving their space initially, this is something that you have to specify, the billing frequency. So the platform, and this is one of the really good values of the platform, is we help you manage the whole process with the renter. So everything from scheduling to also billing. So here you will specify and set up what your billing frequency is, if you want the platform to bill them daily, weekly, or monthly. And we talked about this earlier on. So when we're looking at how the system bills based on your aggregate unit rates that you've specified, it's going to use these periods to determine how many minutes in each of those blocks fit within or occurred within the billing period you've specified here. So sometimes you might want to do the lowest billing frequency, which is daily, if you have somebody brand new who you're not necessarily comfortable with yet in terms of their how well they manage their money and how well they will keep up with making payments to you. If, for example, you let them pay you only once a week, hopefully they've saved their money and they haven't spent it and can actually pay you, or once a month. But if you do daily, then you have the highest confidence that the money that they've recently got is money that they have available to pay or to pay with. And also it's the lowest risk, so if that particular charge fails, then you can easily go deactivate their account, their access, without having lost or be owed so much money. The other thing you can also do with your configuration for access is you can also specify individualized rates for a particular renter. So earlier on when we looked at rates, we looked at your general rates. But say, for example, you had a tenant or a renter who you were more familiar with, had done maybe favors for you in the past or something else. You could set up rates that are unique to them that is not the same as everybody else. You have that flexibility. So all you do here is specify the minutes and how much you charge for those minutes. And rather than using the general rates, which we looked at earlier on, the system will use the individualized rates for that particular renter. And once you have all of that set up, and by the way, you can always come in here and change this anytime. So it's the same view when you're approving a new renter, or if you want to come in here and edit a renter's approval. The other thing that you have up here, if it was a new renter, you would have a approve button here that would allow you to be able to approve a renter, or a reject button that would allow you to also reject their application, and they'll get notified if they get rejected. And if they get approved, then it looks like this. And if you've already approved them, you can also suspend them at any point in time, in which case any appointments that they have booked into the space get canceled and they get notified. And once you've set up all of those, your space is created. And if it's checked here for show and listing, once you say save and close, now we'll tell you here what, based on the configurations that you've set, what your charge today is, so you're aware before any charges happen. Okay, so now that space is saved, and you always want to also say save and close here for the location as well after you change the space. Okay, and once you've done that, your space is created, and now you can find your space in searches, and customers can find you in searches as well. The other thing you can do, remember we talked about this a little bit, where you have your links, your share links. You can use these links to either share the entire location and all of its spaces, or you'll use the link within a particular space, and you can use that link to share that space directly. This is great for if you want to send it by social media, through Facebook, Instagram, or something else, or if you want to link it on your website so customers can go from your website directly to your spaces and be able to do bookings directly into the space, or you want to send it out by email through promotions, so on and so forth. So that's it for creating spaces, and we will see you in our next tutorial.